So you had this job. What should be their strategy at this point? Because the consensus seems to be, this morning at least, based on the share price and what some analysts are saying, that just selling off its international fresh foods business is not enough.
Well, you know, it's interesting because the strategy behind selling off the international and the fresh business is much more about effectiveness than it is about efficiency, right? This is a strategy to create three businesses, each one of which you would hope could be more effective because there's tremendous focus on each segment, right? International has its own uniquenesses, especially with the business being heavily Asia and Australia. Fresh has a whole different supply chain. The center store is what Campbell's has historically done well. So that's kind of I think really the idea behind this whole strategy.
So focus is one idea. Another is how the overall business is evolving. I mean, this strikes me as the ultimate legacy sort of company. We all grew up with Campbell Soups and those little cans. When you're competing against some of the upstarts, whether they're the more artisanal food sources, the more authentic, as some people would say, the smaller ones, how do they compete in this new world other than simply on price?
Yeah, and David, that's the right question because the challenge still remains, right? You can create this focus, but at the end of the day, the big legacy brands like Campbell's and Pepperidge Farm, Goldfish that we all grew up with, they're getting squeezed on the low end by the price brands, on the high end by the emerging premium, health-oriented, less processed brands. And I think the challenge for Campbell's and by the way, any other CPG that's in this space is, can you create the kind of innovation that can compete in that space? How do you beat the Tates to the punch, right? And beat the Lenny and Larry's and the other brands that are occupying this space to that place where you're not getting squeezed anymore? Can you really create a culture of innovation? Because the alternative is you're going to buy those companies and hope to make them, take them when they're 50 million or 100 million and turn them into 200 or 300 million. And then you need a whole team that's really great at acquisitions and integrating and driving growth. But it's a different market today. There are different consumers, and every company, including Campbell's, has got to really go after those consumers and those needs that are much more health-oriented and flavor-oriented, and create a whole new, set of products that meet those needs.
Well, we see that in business after business, where you have a legacy business and you say we want to be innovative. It's really hard because you have your core business. You don't want to give that up too quickly. At the same time, you move to something new. So in that world, is Dan Loeb maybe right? Are they an acquisition target? Who would want to buy them?
Well, the opportunity to buy Campbell's as an acquisition target, what Dan Loeb is pushing would be more about synergy, right? So is this one that a Kraft Heinz, right? So 3G bought Heinz, they got some synergies, cut costs out. They bought Kraft, got another round of synergies. Are they a target that could buy a Campbell's, get a whole nother round of synergies, right? That would be the opportunity. Someone like that, it might fit neatly into a Kellogg's or other businesses out there from a synergy standpoint.
Mike, quickly, why is it so hard for these kind of companies to turn around? Shouldn't they have been innovating like this for decades?
Oh, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? There's smart people at these companies. They're not just waking up today and saying what happened. The real challenge is twofold. The first is these companies are, at their heart, they have been all about mainstream and scale, and today there's a lot more interest in things that are much less processed and more unique and more artisanal, and their product doesn't really quite fit that, right? They're perceived as the process guys.